Between Two Fires is a 2012 period piece horror novel by Christopher Buehlman. Set during the Black Plague, it follows a disgraced knight and a mysterious young girl who travels across France as Lucifer and other fallen angels start another war with heaven. So, this is one of your favorite books.
It's one of my favorite books.
So, when I tell you my thoughts, I don't want you to take it personally.
I'm not going to take it personally.
Not that it was all bad for me, but just general impressions for you.
So it's my second time reading it.
Okay.
So I have a little, I don't know if I have more insight or not, but because I feel like I caught it all the first time. But, it is a book that explores a couple different avenues of horror that I haven't read about before. And, mainly it's a biblical horror book. So it's taking sort of like biblical story characters and demons and stuff from the Bible and then putting them into a real world scenario where these people are faced with these things. And I found it really interesting. As someone who's never read the Bible, never been Christian, any of that stuff, never been Catholic or whatever. So there's that. I really enjoyed the growth of at least one of the characters. And it was kind of a straightforward story. There was not really much guessing. There wasn't really much undertone. Really, it was very much like you're going to listen to this kind of like a classic fairy tale kind of story.
Yeah, I think that's a good description of it.
Guy goes on a journey with girl, and their goal is always the same the whole time. And here are the perils that they encounter along the way, and the people that they meet along the way. And I really enjoyed there's three main characters. I really enjoyed all three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was sort of a classic hero's journey, which is, I mean, there's a reason the hero's journey is so all over the place in fiction, because it's a comforting tale of person going on a crisis, overcoming a crisis, being transformed. I think I had the opposite reaction to you in the being drawn into the biblical horror nature of it, because I just don't give a shit about the Christian motifs in the book.
Sure.
And I am beyond exhausted of good versus evil, heaven, angels good, demons, Satan bad.
Sure. That's totally valid.
And it's not to detract from the book, because I think as far as that, the book did that really well.
Yeah.
It's just, oh man, growing up with that, it was just personally exhausting for me.
Sure.
To have to go through the angels are here, Satan bad boy. So the other problem for me with that book, I think it was kind of a perfect storm, because I think the core of the book is good. I think Christopher Buehlman is a good writer.
I hope that this doesn't prevent you from reading some of his other books.
No, I don't think it will.
Because I think that there's specifically one called The Black Tongue Thief that you would adore.
Yeah, the other big negative for me was just the medieval setting, which is also just a setting I'm really bored of.
Yeah.
I don't really know why I'm so bored of it, other than just, I don't know.
Yeah, and this is a bleak, dark age medieval setting.
It's extremely medieval.
And although it is fantastical in that there are these monstrous beasts, demons, and stuff, there is no other fantasy to it.
Right.
Like it is the real world. It is
Right.
France, where these horrific things are happening. There's no one you're not encountering mages and fucking healers and all this shit. It is just normal dudes experiencing horrific things in medieval France.
Yeah. I think my distaste of medieval settings just is like almost a philosophical one, because I think it's like the worst period of all of humanity.
It's pretty rough.
I mean, I just anyway.
Was there anything? Was there anything about the book that you enjoyed?
Um,
What did you think of? What did you think of the narrator, which is the right? The
Yeah.
writer is the narrator.
there were some scenes, and we'll get into that when we cross the spoiler Rubicon. The narrator I detested.
Really?
Again, because like we've previously established, I have a really hard time with British narrators.
Yeah,
And-
it's interesting that he did a British accent when all of the characters are French.
Right.
But maybe that just made the most sense. Maybe he was best at that.
This to me, this is as bad as British narrators get.
Damn.
Because I never do this with books. I had to turn the speed to 1.5 so that I could even, because he talked so slowly. Part of that may have just been because I was not super engaged with the plot, but also I just think he is just a boring as fuck narrator.
Damn, dude.
Um,
I feel the exact opposite, but I respect your opinion.
Yeah, and what just for me, anytime a narrator is, anytime I get yanked out of the narrative because I'm distracted by his narration or his voices, that's bad to me. And he did, I think, the worst female voice I've ever heard.
For the girl?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not the best. But also that's a hard challenge for any male narrator to do. And that's why I appreciate when there's two narrators.
It is, but a lot of them do it really well. For example, there is a narrator named R.C. Bray, who is probably one of the greatest working narrators currently, in my opinion. And he does accents really well, and he does female voices really well. And so much so that you don't even, he's such a good narrator that you're just into the story. You
Yeah.
kind of forget that you're being read the book.
Yeah.
It almost feels like there are different people voice acting.
Yeah, and I do really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think Michael Kramer does a pretty good job when he has to do the female voices. Although, like the way that book is split up, it's like if it's a chapter about a female character, the female narrator will do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they do a good job of like keeping you. You're not
Right.
distracted by the voices, and then sometimes you love the voices so much that like it's kind of like I don't want to hear this any other way. Like when Kate Redding does Pattern in the Stormlight Archives, it's the best Pattern. It's the best voice ever.
She's a great narrator.
Yeah, but then when Michael Kramer has to do Pattern, you're like, it's not as good. Not as good.
Yeah, her pattern is incredible. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was a challenging book for me to get through, and there were things I liked about it. But yeah, that's sort of my spoiler free ideas about the book. So,
Okay.
Do you have anything else?
No, I think that there are some. There's some things that this book explores beyond surface level monster demon horror that really I found super appealing, and like it's one of those books that like when you come away from it, at least for me, I came away from it like thinking about it for a couple days after. I'm like, God damn, that was really awesome. And we can get into what I'm talking about in the spoilers.
I guess the only other non-spoiler thing, and this is a bit of a like.
I'm sorry. Did you say you liked anything about it? Was there any one thing you liked about it?
There were things, but I can't really talk about them without the spoiler section, because there were scenes that I really enjoyed.
Okay,
they were really cool.
That's good.
This is a bit of. This is going to be like kind of a snobbish statement.
Yeah.
Maybe not. It's more of a critique, and I don't think this is not a sign that a book is bad. But there is something called the Bechdel test. I think I said that correctly. It is that a story needs to have more than one female character that talks to another female character about something other than a man.
Does this not pass that
And
in that one scene?
this failed that test. Was there a scene? As far as I know, I didn't remember any scene.
Well,
in it.
we'll get to it. I can't remember exactly. I feel like that there was a scene in which, at least two scenes in which a woman talked to the girl directly, not about a man.
Maybe I'm misremembering.
Okay.
And again, that's not necessarily that doesn't mean a book is bad. Although some people will say that, but they're wrong. But it's just particularly with a story like this that is very punched in on 3 characters and just follows those characters around, and the gender makeup of that group of people
it's
prohibits that
yeah.
from passing that test. So it's not something that is necessarily a bad thing. But I didn't really love the way Delphine was written.
No, there was definitely parts of it where it, like, yes, it fits the time period, but, or maybe it fits, I could see it fitting the time period, but it feels very, what's the word? It's very men writing women, but it's also very, like,
it's a bit misogynist.
Misogynist, yeah. That's the word. Okay, well, let's cut. We're going to do spoiler time.
Yep.
Now is a spoiler time. We're going to get into the details of the book, beginning, middle, end, details of what happened at each individual part potentially. So if you do not want spoilers, don't watch or listen.
And if what we've said so far is interesting, go read the book and come back and listen to this next part.
Yep. Okay, so what do you want to talk about from the meat of the book? First off, can you tell me what you liked?
Well, this is jumping way ahead in the timeline, but
do we want to go through the timeline?
I mean, we can hit like the major story beats. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Let me go. Had this pulled up. I mean, you probably also just remember the major story beats pretty well.
I mean, some of them blend together, but like you had mentioned, the book starts off with 4 brigands that find a mule or a donkey. I can't remember which. And they're like, we're going to eat that shit because they're really hungry. And so they go into the barn, they eat it. And then this girl who you don't learn her name till like halfway through the book because he never bothers to ask. She comes in, she's like, you eat my donkey. He's like, great, we're going to fucking kill you. And she's like, can you just bury my dad? Because my dad's dead. And there's the plague happening, so everyone's very wary of each other. Basically, this girl is very naive and trusting of these 4 brigands. And one thing leads to another. She runs up a tree, and it basically, like, this one guy goes out because he wants to basically have his way with her. There's one person there who's a former knight, a fallen knight, who's the main character named Tomas, or one of the main characters named Tomas, and he murders 2 of his companions or bludgeons one, maybe murders, I don't remember. He murders 2 of them, and one of them ends up like tied up. And he basically is like, I'm leaving this girl, I don't care, bye, we're leaving. And the girl goes, you can't leave me. And that's when the story begins. Girl named Delphine follows Tomas around. He says he'll take her to the next town. And then, the story goes from there.
And the backdrop is that we're in medieval Europe in the middle of the Black Plague.
Yes.
And the plague was started by Lucifer and the other fallen angels to kick off another war with heaven.
Yeah, and he sort of reads you this passage that's not, it sounds biblical of Lucifer or it started another pestilence and that sort of thing in the prologue.
Yeah.
So the characters go to the next town. The next town's all dead people, so he can't leave her. And then they get to another town, and then they meet the 3rd character, which is the priest. And the priest is tries to appeal to Tomas's good nature and is like, "Hey, there's like a fucking creature eating people in the water." And he's like, "Yeah, okay, bullshit." And he's like, "Please kill the creature, and I'll give you food or something." So Tomas goes, and sure enough, there's a creature. And this is your first exposure to there are demons and bad stuff actually happening. They're not hiding it at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I thought the action sequences were good.
yeah,
I mean
they have is a great job describing like these horrific
mhm,
amalgamations of creatures with like a person's hand. He does the thing we talked about with in other books where he'll repeat a phrase over and over
mhm,
when he goes a fucking hand because the thing had a hand and that was like it was like a human hand that's repeated throughout the whole book.
right.
There's never any like reason for it. It's just seems to be like
Mhm.
a go-to phrase for him to scare people. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a phrase for that for that um that thing to
Yeah.
what you do when you're right, but I can't remember it right now. But yeah, no, I mean the action sequences were really good. The monsters were really horrible. I mean, one of my favorites was that it was somewhere in the middle of the book, which we'll get to. But yeah, that was all that part of the writing was satisfying.
Yeah.
It's the traveling and the character development that I felt like was pretty boring,
Sure.
to me at least. And it in this first section where we're starting at, it kind of it starts that way and it's that way for the whole book for me.
Yeah, and we don't need to run through all the different beats because basically this whole story is them going from like you can imagine them on a straight line. They're stopping at each town along the way, and at each town along the way, something horrible happens.
Yeah.
The next thing I thought was pretty cool, which was they end up at this castle, and at this castle, no one's sick. And he's like, "Why is no one sick?" They're like, the plague came, and a lot of people died, and now no one's dying.
Hmm.
So if you want to come on in, we're having a tourney. You can have some dinner. And the girl's like, "I'm not fucking going in there." Um, then they go to a nice dinner and everything's pretty cool. And then he sort of insults the knights he insults the French from the battle of what was the battle called that he basically lost his lord at.
I can't remember.
He gets insulted, and then it sort of starts getting weird right around there, and then get to the actual tournament, and shit's getting really weird. And then he gets into like a fight for his life, and then the sun comes up, and all of a sudden everything's gone, and none of it was real, or
Hmm.
none of it was as he thought. Maybe it was. It's hard to know if it was actually real because uh, multiple people experienced it, but like what is real?
Yeah, at least yeah, it wasn't clear to me if that was a hallucination
Well,
or something else.
later in the book, he talks to the priest about it, and he goes, "That was real." And he goes, "Yeah, because we both experienced it." So clearly,
Mm.
there's some reality to it, but they don't go into any further detail than that. But I thought that was a cool scene.
Yeah.
It was. I definitely didn't expect everything to just disappear and it to be over. I was like, "Oh, weird."
Right.
That was interesting.
Probably one of my favorite scenes was the statue of the Virgin
Yeah,
Mary attack.
yeah.
That was absolutely the coolest scene in the book to me.
The one where she busts into the house and is swinging around a
Yes.
baby.
Yeah.
That is. I don't know if you've watched Doctor Who, but that is straight up.
Is it really?
That is a straight up a Doctor Who kind of. So in Doctor Who, there's this episode where there are these like kind of not angelic statues, but these statues where when you look away from them, they'll basically approach you every time you look away, so you can't look away from them or like blink. Um, it's a lot like that.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that.
Yeah, that was cool.
That
was a
that
really
was
great scene.
my favorite scene in the book too.
Yeah.
Other than the end sequence with him.
Mhm.
But yeah, so one of the things that happens is that they go to this. Is it Paris?
I can't remember where
I
they
think
were.
it actually is in Paris.
All the settings do just they really bleed together.
They do.
for me.
They do. Because it is just like go from one town to another. Horrible thing happens.
I
go
don't
to one
remember the
town to
French names for all these
Yeah,
towns.
I think one of them. I think they did go. I think this was in Paris. And yeah, at night, basically, there's a statue. There's monsters at night. They're going around, knocking on doors, and at one point, this statue. They're like appealing to their humanity, being like, "Help my baby! Help my baby!" And of course, it's not a baby. It's a fucking evil statue demon, which is cool.
Yeah, no, it was really great.
And I think that section is where Delphine talks to the mom that lives there a couple times
Maybe that did happen.
about wanting to stay with her,
Yeah.
about wanting some food, stuff like that. So I think that does. I think I can't say for certain because I wasn't paying attention.
Now that you mentioned that, yeah, that's probably right. Okay.
Because there was that, and there was also the time I think where she talked to the lady who sold them the key to like the hotel room that was just like a morgue, basically. But anyways, so the story progresses all the way up until they meet the Pope, and the Pope is a bad boy. He's Beelzebub. I don't know who that is. Fly demon, fly devil.
Oh, like what kind of demon?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I got the impression that he was like a evil fly boy.
Maybe,
but he was a major demon.
Yeah,
and he took over the Pope, and no one knew, and yeah, and so their goal is to kill him. They have like the spear that pierced the rib of Jesus when he was on the cross, and for some reason that makes it real good to kill demons with. I guess because it has his blood on it. Who fucking knows? And then your boy Tomas gets fucking murked, and he dies. And then the best sequence in the book, in my opinion, is he goes to hell, and then he's in fucking hell. And that scene to me was a great depiction of like a horror that is kind of like what we talked about with Revival. Like you don't know what the afterlife is, and this repeated torture so much that it strips your memories, your personality, your all you know is pain over and over and over kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, you know, that's kind of like the existential horror that I look for. You know, something that could happen because you don't really know that nothing's happened after afterlife. So,
yeah, I think why that scene did not resonate with me, and I was just kind of like the whole time, was just because it hit that personal. I grew up
totally
in Christianity, where the religion and Catholicism did this for a long time, and now evangelicalism does it. There are plenty of Christian sects that don't preach hell fear, but the majority of them do. And these are all the horrible things that are going to happen to you if you don't do this. And so when we got to the hell scene, I was just like, okay, yeah, hell, yeah, okay. I've been hearing this my whole life. And I think that just personally, what annoyed me about that is because there isn't no description of hell in the Bible. Right. That's all made up.
Right.
People just make that shit up to scare people. And so, like, I totally see it from your perspective because you don't have the personal history. So yeah, I think that may be one of the bigger things reasons why I was kind of just.
Yeah, when I recommended it to you, knowing that you had, you know, background in Christianity, I wasn't sure if that would make it more interesting or way less interesting, and I guess I know my answer now. So I completely understand why that didn't resonate with you. Yeah, as someone who has no real religious background in Christianity, I just thought it was fun. You know, it was a cool description. I'm not tired of Angels vs. Demons because I've basically there's been very little media that I've watched that is about that. Yeah, I just thought it was a fun depiction of biblical horror.
And there are stories that are similar in setting and tone and plot, well, not plot, but similar stories that I do get really into. But it's because they break a little bit from the because that was a very traditionally Christian story.
Totally.
And when stories like Castlevania, if you've never watched Castlevania, I absolutely loved that show. And it's because there was lots of other elements to the traditional good versus evil in that show.
And I totally understand.
So, yeah.
And I think, you know, maybe on my second time through, the parts that maybe landed a little bit less were things like the ending, where it kind of just loops back and now it's like a happy fairy tale where he ends up in his own body and he gets to go meet Delphine again for the first time, and then they now they're going to go live their life and not have to die, and she doesn't have to be a martyr and turn into whatever she turned into. And they also killed the bad guy. Like basically when the angels actually came down to fight, it was like he basically was like, there's just no contest. You know, right. They were big and scary, but there were never going to be a match for heaven. And so there kind of diminishes the ending a bit to just be like, it never really mattered. These
Right.
guys were always going to fucking kick their asses.
Which is like that is at the core of the Christian mythology,
Didn't
which
know.
is so silly to me because there in Christian mythology it's Lucifer is the great destroyer and he's tricking humanity and all this stuff, but it also makes it clear that at any time God or any angel can just wipe them out with ease.
Yeah, and that to me is like doesn't make any. It's like, why wouldn't they just do it then?
It doesn't make any sense as a religion either.
Yeah,
Yeah, because why wouldn't you?
yeah.
Why would you make something, let the bad boy fuck it all up, and then not do anything to fix it?
Yeah.
Fucking asshole.
Yeah, and it dropped a little bit on my. It was one of my top few books, maybe a little bit less now, but I still really liked it.
Yeah, I will say the horror descriptions in that book were fantastic.
Yes,
And the
yes.
action sequences were great. I I I had personal conflicts with the overall plot, and I felt that the characters didn't have any real meaningful arcs. Um,
I thought Tomas had a bit of redemption. I mean, his whole arc was about forgiveness. Like forgiving his wife for betraying him, forgiving
yeah,
himself, and I thought that was pretty well written. And then like you could argue that the whole story is kind of like they wrapped it up pretty. He wrapped it up pretty on the nose with the two angels are fighting one demon and they crash into the water, and then up comes three angels. They're like, forgiveness is possible, even for the biggest bad boys. So that was a little bit on the nose.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. No, that's a good point. I um I think I was really annoyed with Delphine's character. This
she did not have very good, her of an arc.
Yeah, I think you said it earlier. I think it was very apt, which is Delphine was very much a men writing women, where she's just this innocent girl, and because she's so innocent and pure, like all women are, that's why she has special connection to magic power heaven,
Yeah.
and I just
Yeah, there was not much there, and even to exacerbate that problem, when she would like have something important to say or like give you information of like you need to not do this or you need to go to this place, he was very clear and being like it wasn't her speaking, it was an angel talking through her.
right.
It's like she can't.
She has
give you-
no agency
Yeah,
in the story
right.
whatsoever.
Yeah, so that
Um,
part was not good. There was other weird sexualization of her that I was like, this is gross. Like the part where he was like, you got boobs now, cover them up. It's like, dude, she's like 12, dude. Like, chill out, man. I think this would make a good movie, though.
Yeah.
Um,
I would be much more interested in the movie, particularly because it wouldn't have the audio narrator. but no, that was a good point about Tomas's arc. That I think I think I was too distracted by the kind of dull Knight's Honor
Yeah.
storyline. But I think you're right, and that I think the core of his character was about learning for forgiveness, and that does make it a little more interesting.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about. There's also a priest who just loves to drink. He's a pretty cool guy.
Man, he was a nothing burger of a character.
Yeah.
He was an alcoholic priest who never really did much, and everybody was just giving him shit all the time for being gay.
Yeah, but his final act was to defend Delphine, and then he died, which is okay.
Yeah, but I that wasn't surprising at all.
No.
Because he was never a coward.
No.
He just got shit on, and everybody was like, "Wow, you're gay and you're drunk, you asshole." And he was like, "Oh man." He also replaces the word "fucking" with "whoring" and "cunting."
Yes.
And I
But
asked,
does he ever use fucking in that book?
I don't think he ever uses
Damn.
"fucking." And I thought that was weird, and I tried to look up, was that real? Was that an
How
actual
they talked.
thing, how they talked? And I asked Leslie, because Leslie knows a lot about that time period. And she didn't know anything about that, and which would make sense because we use, this is all my very smart wife who is information I'm repeating. So fucking is a linguistic intensifier word. And we don't have a lot of information about what the intensifier words were for people back then, because the only people who recorded, because we just don't have any words from common people or
Right.
writings from common people, because they were all illiterate.
Why would you have those? Why would anyone document that?
Right. And the people who were documenting were not going to include taboo intensifier words like whoring or cunting or fucking.
Right.
So anyway, that I was just, every time he was saying that, I was just like, it's so weird. I don't know.
That part didn't bother me, but I understand.
Like, I know you're trying to do a medieval thing, but it's weird when every other sentence is, why are you a whoring asshole? I just it kind of got tiring after a while.
Yeah. I get you.
But anyway.
Well, thanks for reading it.
Thanks.
I'm looking for, we've already started our next book for our book club.
Yeah.
Definitely looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to talking about that one.
Yeah. That's a series.
Even, I think it is interesting when we have disagreements on books, because it makes for interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And I think just now in talking about it, I think my estimation of that book went up a bit.
Okay.
Because of the ways that you viewed the story, that I think I was too caught up in my own shit.
Yeah. And I completely understand why that, both with the setting and, being biblical, I understand why, you don't like both of those things.
Yeah.
I didn't know you didn't like medieval stuff before. I didn't know you knew it was biblical going in. I don't think you knew it was medieval, but whatever.
Yeah, it's not that I don't like medieval stuff. It's just that I don't like I don't like basic medieval stuff.
Yeah.
I need something more there. I loved Game of Thrones, the first 5 seasons, and I absolutely love House of the Dragon.
Okay, so you like medieval fantasy, basically, with a little more fantasy to it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you might like his other book. Probably wouldn't like the audiobook because he narrates it, so maybe you'll never listen to it. But
oh boy,
it's a fucking good book.
I'll give it a shot.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yep. And just as a reminder, our next book is Empire in Black and Gold by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Yep, and we'll put that in the description. Empire in Black and Gold, and we're going to be listening to the audio version of it. You don't have to listen to it though. You can read it in physical form if you want to.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Goodbye.